Thank you all for joining us. A real privilege to have John, the king of CAD, here with us tonight. So one of the themes for tonight is sort of disrupting an industry. John most recently put CAD in the cloud against all the odds of people being haters and saying it wouldn't happen. We've brought 3D printers into the factory as a production tool, despite all the haters telling us it would never happen. So part of the theme tonight is adversity, and when someone tells you no, it doesn't mean that when somebody says that a business is not going to work, it doesn't mean you have to listen. You can go test it and using the agile approach. Before we get into the stories of kind of how we've gone and built these businesses, want to introduce each of you and hear your story through founding 3 different businesses and exiting them. Probably too much to pack into the 30 minutes right now, but maybe a high level of each of the businesses with sort of more emphasis on Onshape more recently.
Okay. All right. Well, I started, I've been building these systems for over 44 years, and I think I'm about half done. So I'm going to tell you that's the first thing. So I need new people to do the second half. But I learned to program computers 50 years ago in high school, and also learned paper drafting. And then I went to college, and I thought I was going to major in computer science, but I shifted. I saw how cool product design looked. I'm not making this up, okay? I had a relative, my uncle, who was very persuasive, and I looked at the course catalog, and I saw these product design. I'm like, I want to do that. So I'm telling you, I know some of you are product designers here one way or another. Okay, quite a few, but not everyone. Anyway, and so that began my career of designing products that other people use to design products. So I look at myself as a fellow product designer. So the first company I started was called Premise. No one's probably ever heard of it. We made a product that was something you might think of as a sketcher, the sketcher module out of a CAD system with equation solving. Turned out not a lot of people wanted to buy that. And we were convinced that Windows was going to be a big thing, but we were too early, 1989, a little too early. But I learned a lot, and then regrouped, and then started SolidWorks. And the belief there was that 3D CAD was a great idea, but running on Unix workstations anyone even know what a Unix workstation is? Yeah, okay. Few people, some of the old timers have used them, go Unix workstations. People thought it was crazy. How would it ever run on a Windows computer? How would it ever be fast enough? Well, businesses don't take that seriously, and all this naysayer stuff. And we said, hey, we'll make it easier to use and lower cost, and not only the software, hardware, and boom, it's a SolidWorks, it's been very satisfying. We sold the company. You use the word exit. I don't like the word exit, because when you sell a company to me, that's not the end of the journey. That's a step in the journey. I talked to someone a few moments ago here whose company was just acquired. It doesn't sound like they're leaving, And so I stayed at SolidWorks 14 years after it was acquired because I like doing it. And throughout my journey, the one thing I'll emphasize is I always love visiting customers. I had a great opportunity to visit Mosaic and a really great office here. I hope you're all enjoying the tours you're getting tonight. Really cool vibe in the office. I learned things by doing it. And I talked to customers about using the product. I could see with SolidWorks all these problems with I don't have to go through them all, but installing and setting up the system and the hardware and the license codes and service packs and downloads and people on different versions. And those are the easy problems. Bigger problem is the PDM, files, locking, checkout. You're all dealing with this kind of sorry. When we built SolidWorks, we built the CAD. We didn't think about PDM. Should be obvious to you. We weren't thinking about it when we built it. Otherwise, it would be better, And I've had a lot of people, I've been very lucky to have a lot of people thank me for building SolidWorks. I've never had anyone thank me for building SolidWorks PDM. 0 people have come up and said, oh, John, you didn't introduce me and say, he's the guy who, because it's just a terrible idea, locking, copying files and all that nonsense. Think about it, Sorry, I'm going too long here already, but this is kind of an important point. And then at the same time, so I would visit all these customers, and they were like really sometimes quite upset with me about all these issues. I don't blame them. And they'd be like, "What should we do?" And I'm like, "I don't know what you should do. We weren't thinking about this 30 years ago when we built it, And at the same time, I saw what was happening with cloud, web, and mobile. Salesforce, Workday, Zendesk, NetSuite, Google Docs, Asana. Basically, everything new in the world was being built differently than files and installed software. I'm like, wow, it hit me. We could solve so many of the problems people have, but we have to build a whole new system. So, went and did that, and everyone said again the same things they said about SolidWorks. Same things. Basically, cloud, it'll never work, and it won't be. Just the same things they said about Windows, Same people, actually, some of them. And anyway, and we, everyone in the industry said, "Oh, it'll never work," and it's like, sorry, industry, it works. So with Onshape, those of you who use it. I'm not here to sell you Onshape as my main mission, but a little bit. But we think we're doing something important, and those of you who are Onshape users here, hopefully quite a few. Wow, thank you. I hope you'll agree with me that there's all these benefits to using it. It's not just a different version of what you had before. People work differently. The PDM isn't a nightmare. You can, there's so many good things. So that's what I'm doing. And so we founded Onshape almost 6 years ago. We were acquired by PTC. Once again, I'm staying, and the business is growing pretty dramatically. And that's my story. So, sorry.
No, it's incredible, and the passion is really clear as you talk about it. I think a lot of people who do sell businesses, the typical story is you sell the business, you join a bigger company, you don't like it, and then you leave. So it's usually 1 or 2 years, but 14 years and 2 exits recently, each for around 400 million. Like, so much success, but you chose to stay, and I want to double down on that. It's extraordinary. Why did you stick around for 14 years? Why did you then, and I heard you explained you built it on a new tech stack, you built a better product, but what keeps you in this world, and why did you choose to build the third company in the same space as the second one?
I really think, you're going to think this. I'm not making this up to say I like this stuff. I like doing it. Like, what else am I going to do? Like a lot of my friends are retiring. And I'll be honest with you, at my age, I could, and I think about retiring sometimes. My wife and I talk about it. It's not like that doesn't enter my mind. But I like what I'm doing. I find it really interesting. First of all, the main interesting thing about it is you. It's the customers. It's the people. Think of what I get to do. I get to go talk almost, not every day, but many days I'm talking with or about people like you who are building all sorts of different things. Just the people in this room, raise your hand. None of you are building the same things, right? You're building cool products. And I told you, I love product design. I love product development. And the idea that we can help you do it better, is really, that's just cool to me. I mean, I don't want to sound like, a nerd or something, but it is. It's just cool. I mean, I like other things too, but this is something I like doing. And the other thing I think that keeps me at it is I just feel like there's so much more we can do. If you look at SolidWorks or you look at Onshape and you say, it's great, but I wish it did this and I wish it did that. Well, we feel that way too. I do. I'm thinking all the time about the things that we need to do to make it better. And when I meet customers, almost every time I visit a customer, I think, oh, we've got to improve this. We've got to improve that. Sometimes it's more features. Sometimes it's rethinking them. Sometimes it's new features we're about to ship, and we say, what were we thinking? We did some testing and everything. Like some things just take a while to get right. Like that mirror assembly. I don't know if Onshape users saw it. We're pretty proud of that, but we went through some careful thinking about it. We didn't want it to be just like others and stuff. So I think what keeps me going is the other thing is the technology is so cool. It's such hard tech. Like some of you are in businesses where there's some technical aspect that's super hard and it's kind of attractive in a way. And modeling shapes is hard. Presenting the array of commands we have in a UI that's easy, that's hard, okay? The reliability, the performance, it's all hard. These are not easy problems. And I think that draws me to it. It makes it, it's always something new and interesting. So and I'm lucky to work with great people. I've been lucky to be surrounded by some of my colleagues are here, and I like our team and culture. If I didn't like it, I'd leave, so I like doing it. And I'm just doing the same thing I've been doing almost every day since 1981, which is trying to make these tools a little better tomorrow than they were yesterday.
I hear you. We have a lot in common. I think, solving hard problems, working with great people, driving impact, it's what sort of gets you out of bed in the morning. And you mentioned that, I think that attitude of like, there's always more to solve, right? We're not there yet. And I know we'll pick up on that a little bit later to try and answer, like, what's the future of CAD? What are some trends that you see? So for those of you who don't know me, I'll introduce Mosaic briefly. So I'm one of the co-founders and the CEO of Mosaic Manufacturing. We're just downstairs here, so I know a lot of you have gone on tours to see what we do. We're in the business of reshaping supply chains using additive manufacturing. That's sort of our baby product over here, Element, but our flagship product is downstairs. It's called Array. Our customers think about it largely like a supply chain in a box. You can think about it like a lot of 3D printers with a ton of automation around it. Robots, material management, automated software. And what our customers use it for is to solve a supply chain problem where they used to outsource, whether it be across the planet or across the country, and now they've brought that supply chain right into their factory, shortening lead times, using less materials, saving cost, and really driving impact in their business. And something more recently we've been focused on is, rather than selling that to anybody and everybody, we're going a lot deeper with certain customers where we see a ton of value. So, if you walk over here later, you'll see in the medical space where each of our bodies are different and customization is core to delivering sort of better patient outcomes. We've really emphasized that space. Digital foam, digital emblems for decoration of clothing. These are a few of the areas that we're focused on sort of driving that change. 10, 20 years from now, we see a future where ultimately a lot of the things that, and parts of the things that we buy are made around the corner. And we think that additive manufacturing has a really big part to play in that transition. And like I said before, I think along this journey, we faced a lot of adversity. There's so many people that said, like, that's dumb for this reason, that's dumb for that reason. And I know you heard the same thing. So I want to talk a little bit about how you built a culture within the company that was able to deal with that adversity and how you kind of balance getting stuff done with innovation. I know these are things that you think a lot about, and I would love to hear your perspective on both.
Well, I think culture, you have to build culture before you need it, is one of my observations. Like, culture starts, then when you need it, it's there. You can't, we all, I always say, when you learn to be a manager or executive, when you're not one. That's when you learn everything, a lot of what you need to learn about management. So you all know what it's like when management comes to you with some big song and dance about culture or values or vision, or, the value of it, the good way to do it is when management and leadership live those values every day from the beginning. I sense that you're doing that with Mosaic. I can feel it. Yeah. And it's genuine. You don't need to write, maybe you write it on the wall, I didn't see it, but it's not the writing on the wall that's important. It's the how people behave that's important, what is important. So in the companies, in SolidWorks, Onshape, and Premise before that, we try to really, and I'm going to ask my Onshape colleagues to keep me honest here, we try to make your success really the prime value, the prime directive, to use a little Star Trek term, in some way. The prime goal is always like, what will help our customers build a better product, right? Alex, I see you, do you agree? Do we really say this shit internally, right? I mean, this stuff, I'm saying shit, it's not, I want you to know this is the real deal, right? When we're in meetings, and I'm in a lot of meetings to talk about what to build for you, how to price it, how to do it. We're in it to, we're trying to make money, we're a business, but we think a lot, and we get people who are very motivated to do that. Anyone use our tech support? And what was that experience like? like the best you've ever seen, right? Hopefully. If it's second best, if you're going to tell me that some other company gave you faster, better support, then I'm not happy, because we're trying to be the best, not CAD. I mean, CAD's an easy target because the other ones kind of aren't so good. I'm talking about anything you do. So that's culture, and those people on that team know what their job is, and they take it seriously, and there's a value system. It's not about software or some flow chart, it's about the culture. So anyway, we establish it through how we behave and how we make decisions, and we try to focus, and we show that's what we care about. What does leadership get emotional about? Like we tend to get emotional in a good way. We have team meetings every week. What do we focus on in the team meetings? We focus on customer stories quite often.
Experience.
And we tell it as it is, not just the good parts, but also the bad parts. This customer had a problem. What did we do about it? So that's setting up those values early. Then when there's a debate or a problem, you can tie back to that value system and the goals. What is your goal? And our goal is to try to improve the design and manufacture, but principally the design in our world, the design of every product on Earth. That's kind of our goal, and I see it as. And you might say, well, what about the people who don't use Onshape? I believe that what we're doing is so profound that even people who stay with other systems will benefit from the work we're doing, because my competitors have already kind of woken up and said, oh, there's some good ideas there. And the same's going to happen with you. You'll have an effect on your competitors. So I really believe that. So, okay. And then, so that's some of the cultural building elements, I'd say. And sometimes you draw it down. You have to explain a decision. We have debates. And we say, well, look, we think this is the best thing for our customers. I know you don't agree, but it's about that. That's what we try to argue.
And how do you think about innovation? You said something before around Amazon wouldn't be what it is today if they just executed. How do you balance innovation with scale, especially at the scale you're at?
That's a great point. I see this in my customers all the time and ourselves. I think any business that gets to be a larger business, when you're starting a business, you're just innovating. If there's two people in a room, there's not generally operational things. But if you work for a bigger company or build a bigger company, including our own business now, we have a lot of what it is execution and operations. We can't have everyone on our team running around innovating every day and saying, oh, let's try some new ideas. The support calls wouldn't get answered. The new release wouldn't come out every 3 weeks. Those of you who don't use Onshape may not know that. There's a new release every 3 weeks, and you don't have to do anything to upgrade. Think about that. And everyone in the world's always on the same version, the latest one, period. Drop the mic. Okay, that all happens because of an enormous amount of work from people who can't be spending their days, dreaming up the latest new feature, or something like that. So you have to have this operational branch to your culture, and a company like Amazon is like that. But you can't only have that. You have to have innovation too. And I think that the types of things it takes to be innovative and creative and try new things is somewhat at odds with the operational culture. They're almost like each other's kryptonite. And I think great companies allow both to coexist. And I think that's what I aspire to in our team. We want operational excellence while still having space for innovation. And we recognize that those aren't always, they're kind of opposites, and you have to kind of figure it out. My wife taught me something wise. She said that maturity, one aspect of maturity is being able to hold multiple emotions at the same time. This comes up in raising the family and our own relationship, and a child can't, a child's either, if you're hungry, they're just hungry, baby, but you have to hold multiple emotions. And I think a great company is like that. It can be both innovative and operationally excellent. And I think Amazon is a great example of that. Like, wow, delivering, 10 million packages probably to all of us all the time, and yet coming up with dramatic new things, really inspiring. And I think we all have to be a little bit like that.
Yeah, I think I have this conversation with other founders all the time about the balance. If I can ask one more question on that, is there a specific tactic you can share that you use at PTC or Onshape to action that, to make sure that you find that balance? Like, what's something you do to make sure you are having that innovation coexist with the operational side? Am I putting you on the spot? We can.
Well, I would say one thing you can do as a leader. So a little bit, I'll take a moment and say I was the CEO of Onshape when we were acquired, and then I was the general manager of the business unit. A couple of years ago, I shifted to being in a cushy job of chief evangelist. So I don't run the business anymore. I get to hang out. I get to do things like this and visit a lot more customers and things like that. So I'm lucky in that way. But when I was general manager, I think showing personal interest and emotion around both centers of excellence is important. Like, if all you do is spend time in the lab tinkering, what does that tell your team about operational excellence? And if all you do is pour over the numbers, and numbers are important, because, if we're going to have a business like this, that's a business, it's going to be there for you. We have to, we have to watch our expenses and our revenues and things just like you do. And so I think that personally being someone who gets excited about both of those is important. And, I'd like to think I put as much energy into our financial reporting package, in terms of excitement, not personal energy and building it, but the excitement and probing and recognition of the importance of that, as I did about, hey, here's a great new feature idea. And both are important. And I don't know, so much of this is a craft. That's why we have sessions like this, by the way. If you think we're going to give you the secret or the answer, maybe you've figured it out, but I haven't. It's just building products, like is sort of an art and a craft. If there was a formula for it, we wouldn't be talking about it. Same with building companies. So that's some thoughts on it. Shelley?
Well said. So I guess it starts with a leadership insight or foresight. All right, let's talk a little bit about the future. We were chatting before, we were saying, kind of feels like the world is moving faster than it ever did. And I think there's this bias when we look at successful businesses. You look at the end state and it kind of all seems obvious. But as operators, as founders, folks in the room who I know want to start businesses, that doesn't capture the reality of how scary it is in the beginning. The fact that you don't have as much confidence, you're taking some risk, but you have to take that leap. You have to have a vision. A wise person once said, a vision and a hallucination are very similar.
Nice.
John said that earlier. You've proven at least twice that you have the vision to sort of see what's coming. And so no pressure, but as you think about AI, the future of CAD, all of these trends that you're seeing happen, can you give us some examples of sort of how you see the future, what's going to come in the next 5, 10 years, and to the extent that you can talk about the future?
Obviously a big question. I'll try and give some short answers. I'll start with AI. Okay, I know everyone's thinking AI. I mean, I'm a big believer in AI and the impact it probably already makes on your life, and particularly your life as a product designer. I see almost every customer using in some way a chat bot, whether it's, a Chat GPT or Copilot or Gemini or Claude or Perplexity or Grok or whatever, right? How many use one of those, I'd say, on average daily or something? Okay, most. How many use it in connection with your work doing product design or manufacturing regularly? Okay, so many of us are using AI, and the number one AI engineering design tool is these generic AI tools right now because they work and they do a lot of useful things. But I think of AI, I see AI and I see it like a new raw material for building computing systems. It's almost like as an engineer, you saw plastic for the first time, or a composite, or an integrated circuit. And you said, oh my gosh, we can build a lot of things. And I think we have to look at AI as something that lets us build a lot of things, use a lot of things, not one thing. I think of it as like computers 3.0, maybe. this we didn't rehearse, just came to me. Like, I was around when computers were a new thing. Like, and a lot of people were like, well, oh, by the way, before in the history of CAD, I was around when it was like, well, we're not going to use any computers in engineering. We're going to just do it on the board. Yeah, you're laughing, but I was around, I've seen a lot. Okay, go back to the 80s, I remember when I was telling Mitch, color was an option. Okay, I was like, well, I don't think, I was like, this should be in all of our users, no, most users aren't asking for color. We're going to charge a lot more for that. And these are true stories. We shipped the chair with the system. The furniture came with the CAD system. I'm not making this up. So, okay, but back to this. So the first wave was like computers came along, and when computers came into the larger world, people are talking about the same way they're talking about AI now. Is it going to displace everyone's job? Are we going to need to, people aren't going to know math anymore, which somewhat came true, with cash registers. People aren't going to need to know any math. The jobs are in jeopardy. And, they were to some degree. And there used to be conferences like computers in mechanical engineering. That was a real thing, and it was like all these talks on how we might use computers. And what's happened is you use computers a lot. Then computers 2.0 was when the internet came along, same thing. And you'd have a session like this on, the internet and engineering. I don't think you'd get a lot of people if it said, how to use computers and the internet, are like they're new things. They're not. I think AI is going to be like that. I think we're going to use AI so much. And so I'd encourage you to think about AI as something, the way we think about it is it's going to have lots of applications. It's a new way of looking at different kinds of computing problems. How many of you used Onshape AI Advisor? Not many. Okay, go to our Learning Center, because if you're an Onshape user, you have access to it. All Onshape users have access to it. Big deal to ship that. You can ask it questions the way you'd ask a user questions. Right now, it will answer a certain range of questions. I would say that range is going to expand. Right now, in the tasks you can ask of it, we have a lot of ideas. So AI, okay, first thing is AI is super exciting. Lots of applications. It's not going to be one thing like, hey, computer, design a chair. In fact, I don't even think that's the most interesting or promising thing. Secondly, besides AI, I actually think additive is really important because it changes every year and improves every year. Like you may say, well, we looked at 3D printing. Well, look again, because it's always changing. And what I see, the way additive's being used, not only for prototypes and ideas, but for production products, which you're the leader in, I would say, but also for things that people make that are not shipping products, but are still really useful, aren't exactly tooling or fixtures either. They're like, just a lot of stuff is getting made with it. And then agile process is a big one. People changing the way they work. And yes, Onshape fuels a more agile process. If you use our branching and merging GitHub, for those of you who don't know Onshape, you might say, what is he talking about? Yes, we do that. It's kind of cool. And, but it's not just an Onshape thing if you're using tools like Slack. Okay, that's another Jira. These are tools that weren't part of the mechanical engineering because guess what? The world's changing all the time, faster than ever. Whether it's tariffs, so different countries you're locating for various reasons, war, politics, pandemics, ESG, environmental, social governance, raw material supplies, pricing issues. You have to change what you're doing. Everyone has to be more agile. You need processes and tools that suit that. So those are some of the big things in our mind. We're also still in the midst of adding all the potential value of cloud native technology, a lot more coming. And so some of the things on my mind. And we didn't even talk about geometry.
That's the thing. I think like a lot of people said, when we were talking about backflip, and there's some cool AI design tools, and I think if you didn't need an engineering degree to learn how to use CAD, if you could just type a prompt in, I think that's maybe the most obvious thought of like how AI and CAD could collide. But I think your first point is like, don't look past the obvious one. As a product designer, using a generalized chatbot or ChatGPT to be able to speed up the design process. I think there's also a lot of wisdom in what you said around, you've lived through so many of these cycles. and you saw how there was kind of doubt at first, and then there was acceptance, and then there was disruption, and then it just became normal. No one talks about whether an interface should be color anymore, right? The fact that people questioned whether or not computers would be part of engineering. And so the way you answered that question, you're taking such a big step back because you've seen this play out and you kind of accept we're in this phase where people are jumping a little too far ahead and kind of need to realize the value and know that it's not one application, it's multiple.
That happened with 3D printing too.
That did happen with 3D printing, absolutely. I think these cycles kind of continue to happen. A few investors recently have told me that they believe that hardware is the new software. They say that software is so easy to replicate now because you can use AI to do it, and that seems so naive to think. But if you extend that along, it's like your business is in jeopardy. How do you build defensibility around a software-driven business? Again, it's a ridiculous statement, but curious how you would answer back to that question and how you think about defensibility of the business that you've built.
Well, first off, I can't tell you everything that's going on in the world because I don't see everything that's going on in the world. I can only talk about the things I've seen. And from everything I've seen, it's very hard to build systems like the ones we build, which is part of the reason why you don't see a whole lot of new ones coming along. We're not the only one. In terms of competitors' systems, there aren't any competitors building a true comparable system to what we're doing. I'll just say, my competitors will tell you otherwise. I'm just trying to be as honest as I can. And so to some degree, I'd say but I can't tell you about the systems I'm not seeing. And somewhere on Earth, maybe in China, maybe elsewhere, there's somebody who's got a better idea or trying to build it, and maybe they'll figure out a way to do it. But I can't prove to you through existence that AI can build anything at the complexity. AI is useful in building systems like ours. We're using AI. We're, like everyone, looking at what AI coding tools are proving they can do and can't do. And some of you may ask about AI coding tools coming to Onshape and FeatureScript and so forth. And we're trying to get them there for you. If they were good enough, we'd ship it. By the way, big caveat. A lot of people are coming out with things in our field, just like with 3D printing. This is what we were alluding to, that are demos, but they don't do the real job. You're not paid to build boxes with holes in it, you're generally, right? You're paid to build something complicated that probably has some subtleties and complexities that are particular to your exact company and industry. I see some head nodding, either you're nice or you agree, and hopefully both. But like manufacturing is hard. And so AI is a great tool, but And you might say, some people say, well, he's just invested in the old world and doesn't want to believe. Hey, I want to believe, but I need to see it. You can't show me something and say, oh, I can design anything. So far, I design a plate with 8 holes or a box, but I can do anything. Well, try designing, forget about designing something as complicated as even that camera. When is that going to happen? Well, it's hard. It takes people. So someday I may be proven wrong, but for now I'd say AI is a tool, and it's going to make your job easier in some ways and harder in others.
Awesome. All right. Great conversation. I know that there were some questions that came in from the audience that Catherine was going to share with us here. Thank you. All right. John, this one's for you. If you could give one piece of advice to founders looking to scale a technology or manufacturing technology company, what would it be?
I would say, don't get too wrapped up with scaling and cost optimization until you've proven out that the product works, that people, to the extent possible in your industry. Some industries, it's harder to do that with. If you're building passenger aircraft or spacecraft, you can't be too agile about that. But a lot of products you can prove out. And probably the number one mistake I see is people getting all wrapped up about cost savings and outsourcing manufacturing, everything, before they've even proven that, or can have even proxy proof that the market wants and will buy what they're building. I heard a product developer once tell me the story, I had even learned this, how, the next product they built the first series of units at a loss because they realized it was more important to learn if it's right then now this was a consumer good that was pretty easy to do that with. And they said, okay, now we've got it right. Now we'll go optimize things. So that's, again, it may be obvious to you, but it is something that I see it over and over again, particularly in startups, out there. Anyway, so.
Yeah, it's putting the cart before the horse, and yeah.
Yeah.
All right. There's a few sort of more technical CAD questions here. I'll say two of them. I don't even know what these terms mean, but I know you will. Larger enterprise systems are larger enterprise system integrations coming, like SAP, D365, Oracle, and also, what do you think about the QIF file format allowing automation of CAD and CAM?
Okay.
Separate questions, but we'll link them together.
All right. So integrations with the bigger systems, we can do that now using our API. I know that's probably not the answer you're looking for, but it is possible. We have a growing number of people doing that. We also have some excellent service providers to do that. I'm looking at my Onshape colleagues here as well, who would confirm that, right? That we have some great service providers. I think I can mention a couple of them: CAD Sharp and Caden Armstrong. I know the person. SmartBench are two good ones that you can talk to, and more of our customers will hire them. In terms of out of the box, the shining example there is Arena, that we have the Arena connection. That's something we're pretty happy with in terms of the ease of setup. We're constantly improving it and getting feedback, but that's those of you who are looking for easy integration, we get that with Arena. I would expect that with Windchill, our own PTC's other PLM system, pretty big, famous one, we have a lot of demand for something that is as easy as the Arena integration, but works with Windchill. And so that's a priority for us. And I expect we'll be shipping something there. And we have some customers, maybe some of you are in the room who are in our customer list on that, know that we're kind of committed to doing that for you. But in terms of launching an out of box something with SAP or something, not a prominent part of our plan right now. We'll more rely on APIs and semi-custom code. By the way, a lot of success using AI to build apps using APIs like this, right? That's an area that works really well. You can use the generic tools. I'd be hopeful, I'm not committing anything, that our AI advisor would be very helpful in doing that at some point. You'll say, hey, and also remember, these things all need to be heavily customized anyway. There's no out of the box, solution. And then on the QIF format, I'm not sure I'm familiar with that. I'm just going to be honest. QIF, can you tell me more about that? I mean, I know a lot of formats, but I'll take a quick look. Does anyone want to elaborate on what that is? And maybe I can give.
The integrated format for UVD and inspection and integrations. Quality.
It's got the MBB.
You get that it's the new form of Step 242.
Okay. All right. So it's the new Step 242. Okay. So where are we on so the real question then would be, where are we on the MBD data in general? And we've got a great story on MBD. So those of you, some of you know what MBD and PMI is. I'll just say it's basically the idea that's been around a long time of applying the kinds of information you'd have on a drawing, putting that into the model in a 3D space. Okay, and so you're tolerancing, feature control, datums, things like that. I'm looking at you to validate.
To take it a step further, where you can also integrate the inspection information. So it's like you're inspection with your CMs.
Cool.
And the inspection information, by the way, Onshape has a nice inspection. We think it's nice, and our customers' inspection table, inspection items. So we are building MBD. It's committed. It works. In fact, we have customers using a very early version of it right now. Not in general release, but we have certain customers using it. And so we're excited about it. I'll just say this isn't the direct answer, but this is the foundation, because in order to support the format, you'd have to have the data. We're building it in at the heart of the model. So when you create a feature, and you put a dimension on your extrude, there'll be a little icon there, and you can start to say, here's the tolerance, or better yet, the tolerance set that I like to apply, based, this is generally how I'm manufacturing this feature, this part, pick up. Yeah, and so it's built in at the heart of the model. It's not an afterthought, and it would be very much tied to the inspection table thinking. I had not heard about the QIF format, but that would sound like a fairly important thing for us to support, and I may just have missed the acronym, but if it's in, I'd be hopeful that.
There's a big battle going on between that step 242, 3D PDF. Nobody can decide.
So step 242 I'm familiar with. One of the things we're hopeful about, I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole on MBD, but we spent a lot of time on it, is MBD's been around a long time as an idea. How many people actually use it? Okay. Oh, okay, this is relatively a lot in a group like this, because it's not used as much as people ask for it. We believe one of the reasons is because all this format and file exchange problem in the viewing software, and people don't want to install. So with Onshape, we have the potential to view, as those of you on Onshape know, without exchanging any files and without anyone installing any viewer or anything else. And we think that's pretty cool in a world of MBD, where you'd say, hey, here it is. Well, I don't have the software. You don't need the software. The file's going to be too big to email. I'm not going to email you anything either. Well, what do you mean? Well, is this a viewer? No, it's not the viewer. Well, it can be a viewer. That depends on the permissions you give. So we think that we actually are thinking we can drive a meaningful increase in the use of MBD by making a tool that really is suitable and gets you out of this 3D PDF kind of stuff. Of course, the format I've heard about in our discussions is the step 242, right? But I can find out about that QIF because I literally was looking at our this kind of stuff I do. Literally on the plane, I saw a note about our Confluence page about our MVP, our first shipment of MBD, and we had updates to that. I was interested in it, so I opened it up and was looking at it, all the things we have in there. But I tend to focus more on those user visible features than that. And the testing has given us a lot of good feedback. We're really excited about it. It's coming, and can't wait to see what you think of it.
I'll check on the QIF.
It's clear from that conversation there are too many acronyms in your industry. It sounded like an alien conversation in the middle of just acronyms back and forth. All right, we have one more question that was pre-submitted, and then we have a couple minutes to see if there's anything that's on anyone's minds kind of live. So John, this is an interesting one because it kind of touches both of our worlds a little bit. And the question is, will CAD systems become more tightly integrated with manufacturing systems to streamline the complete design two-part process? Because I think traditionally, design a part, send it over the fence to the manufacturer, never hear from them again. But in our world, we see a lot more parametric design integrations where it's not a 6-month development cycle for a single version. It's a new SKU every few months, or a customized design in the case of something like an orthotic. Curious if you're seeing that pull so that Onshape can actually tie right into a manufacturing environment.
So yes, first, I think there will be more integration, but I don't think the perfect solution's coming soon. I think I'll talk about integration in 2 ways, one, or maybe 3 ways. One is bringing manufacturing into the CAD system, which is sort of the obvious one. We have a lot of demand for CAM, and as you may know, we now have Onshape CAM Studio, which is cloud native CAM, and we're happy with where it is, but we have a lot more work to do with it, and we're moving along, and thank you to those of you who are helping us with that. And that's the sort of obvious answer. Will we have more CAM? We will, but CAM is not everything in the world for manufacturing, despite what some people think. Any more than 3D printing is, I'm sure you'd agree, even though you're doing a great job 3D printing things, but there's a lot more of the world of manufacturing. And so we can start to bring functionality into Onshape, and I'll say the CAD industry in general, is building up more manufacturing in the product. And that's a good thing, but hardly complete. Then there's integrations with external systems. And we're trying to do those sensibly, but there honestly isn't a ton of good momentum there. Like, look at us. We don't have a direct integration. You want to make something in Mosaic that you design Onshape, you're going to be exporting an STL or maybe in the future a QIF file. It sounds like a good idea. So what's going to, the third dimension of this, though, is what's going to drive people to be more digitally collaborative with manufacturing. I think that's not the heart of the question, but I think in some ways is huge potential. Because, we'd like to not have, throwing, like, collaboration with manufacturing used to be sending literally paper drawings in a tube. Today, it's maybe emailing files. It's kind of state of the art, right? Well, guess what? The same information flow as the paper drawing. Draw a diagram, it's the same diagram. With, again, cloud native systems, give us the potential to have a larger number of collaborators. And so at least if you get the people from manufacturing to be literally on the same page, so to speak, the same web page, looking at the same model and having a conversation in real time, saying, oh, is this what you mean? Or I've made, like, we will go to customers and hear things like, oh, I made a DFM branch, with manufacturing edits, and you want to merge those back in, I could start that while you're working. Now, admittedly, that's a small community of people who think that way, but we have to connect the people. It's not just about the software, because the software isn't going to be magically all interconnected anytime soon. But I do think the more we operate off of real-time collaborative communication systems. And again, I'm not just saying Onshape, maybe you have Slack channels with manufacturing. And you might say, old Joe in the shop doesn't, old Joe or Jane, they're never going to use anything like Slack. True, okay? But tomorrow, a little bit of the old Joe and Jane population who looks like me retires, and these new workers come in, and they're not going to know how to use files or email unless you train them. They're going to naturally think about Slacking and sharing. And global collaboration in real time is very familiar to them from gaming. And you know what I mean? So the workforce is changing, and that's going to help this.
A lot of wisdom there. All right, we are getting pretty close to time, but yeah, we've got a couple questions. Kayvan, I knew the first one was going to be you.
Hi, yeah. I actually wanted to follow up on Mitch's question about CAD that we mentioned. Hello? No. Okay, so about the future of CAD, the question that Mitch asked earlier, that without the perspective of AI, or on the, let's say we are at the age of DOS today, and you just seen a demo at Xerox about GUI. Rebuild the GUI, because I've seen a post from you on LinkedIn, like from startups working with VR. Yeah. Have you had that moment, this is like the direction that everyone's going to be there in a few years, the tech is not there, but I've seen the demo.
So to your specific question about AR, by the way, I'm not too big on VR. I mean, it has a place, but in terms of day-to-day, I like AR. AR, augmented reality, you see the real world and you see your object in it, which I think is more practical in work environments. We actually are shipping AR apps. I don't know if you know, Onshape Mobile, those of you who use, Onshape runs on phones and tablets. We have this crazy idea that people want to do real work on phones and tablets. Rest of the industry doesn't seem to think so, but I'm joking because, this is how weird our industry is. Like, like try to explain to your friends how you work with CAD, and they'll be like, what? Files, copies? Well, you run on your Mac? No, it doesn't run on Mac. What, can you do it on your phone? No, can't do it on phone. Well, we can do it on phone. Okay, anyway, sorry about that. But in the mobile apps, if you use them, we have AR viewing mode now. Any of you pull out your phone, bring up your Onshape model, Onshape, and go pick on the view cube and say AR view, and you can view it right here on the stage. Be happy to demo that with any model you like later. And that's been a good thing. We also have a Vision Pro app, Onshape Vision, which is extremely cool. However, not a lot of people are using Vision Pros. Some of our customers are, and it's a very cool app. And that was done mostly by the PTC AR team, which was really cool because we get a lot of benefits out of PTC has been a great place for us. And so I think AR has a lot of promise. I think it's possible that in our future, we'll have the way we have second monitors, we'll have an AR device, and that will expand our viewing space. But is it going to fundamentally reinvent the UI? I don't see it.
In terms of inputs, like how parametric was a new thing, do you see that thing? Like, this is going to be something completely a new paradigm. So like cat query, have you heard of that?
Yes, I have. And I would say that all the interesting tools, I'm sorry, I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole here, but it's hard. There's a lot of different ideas for making geometry. There are many of them that are interesting, and we're incorporating some in our system, and different geometric modeling paradigms. Like for instance, mesh geometry is growing in popularity every day. You are part of the reason why there's more interest in 3D printing, and the de facto currency of it is a faceted format. And so people expect us to read it and do good things. If you haven't tried it, I think we have really cool mixed mode modeling. You can bring in a mesh, you can put precise features on the mesh. You don't need to convert it and so forth. If any of you work with that, and that's due not only to 3D printing, but also to scanning and what I'd call other 3D coming into the world, like entertainment and styling and all that. And some of our customers, it's extremely important to work with that. So we're investing in that. We're not saying, oh, it's all BREF or oh, it's all mesh. It's like, yeah, yes, and then it's same for implicit. Any of you know what implicit modeling is? Okay, and some of you use it. And what's our position on that? We have an Onshape generative and implicit module that has been publicly demonstrated. It's not shipping to all users yet. You can look online. There's public screenshots and things of that. And that we're trying to say, how do you work? I like implicit modeling. Is it going to replace all your parametric modeling? I don't see it yet. So nobody has shown a viable way that could happen. So I think though we have to incorporate those different ideas and technologies into our system so you can have a decent experience with using it instead of this weird hodgepodge tool chain, which is a total nightmare now when customers need to really produce products based on implicit or mesh. And we're trying to address that, and that's going to be a bigger and bigger part. But in terms of a fundamental new way to model or something, people are coming along with it. Oh, text-based modeling is great stuff. It's really interesting, but I already told you, I can't prove by existence that you can do anything real yet. Parametric modeling, we can. And our prime job is always to make sure, I already told you, I tie it back to our values. You have to be able to build real products. And if you can't, we're not going to ship it to you. AI Advisor, we could have shipped that as a demo a year earlier. We didn't want to do it because we waited until we could have expert users say, I'm able to get value out of it. Then we know it's ready. We're going to try never to ship anything to you that you look at and roll your eyes and say, this is no value to me. But it was a great demo, too much of that in our world.
We have one more question. Oh, right in front of you, Kath.
Hello? Is it for PC Watch? Onshape for mobile? Dark mode? Yeah.
Dark mode?
Dark mode, yes.
Oh,
Yes or no?
what was the first question? Was dark mode for mobile?
Yeah. So no.
Like that's one of those things that first of all, I'll say is sorry, because we should have shipped it, like dark mode in general took us too long to ship, okay? Those of you, some of you use Onshape know it took us too long to do that. If you don't, you may be surprised. I'm just admitting it, we don't do everything perfectly. It was much harder to do than you'd think, okay, to do at the scale and quality we want. The mobile, I don't know that we have dark mode for mobile in the plan right now, but it's something I would sure love to see us do someday. And thank you, by the way, when you ask me, that helps. It's not like the main criteria. Yeah, you'd like dark mode on mobile. And is that on iPhone or iPad or? All of them. You use all of them in your organization?
It's honestly every computer, like my coworkers, every time I go to their machines and I see that bright screen glaring and they just go, "You're doing the drawing. Let me prove here."
Yeah, on the computers, we have a great, hopefully you like dark mode. On the mobile devices, we don't. Man, you're the first user to bring that up in a setting like this. It's not that we didn't know about it, but it's not a common, we get a lot of common questions. Assembly mirror, that one's shipped now. So, that's not a common question, but it's a great point. And I'll make sure to talk to our mobile folks about it a little bit.
I like the look over to Alex to see, can I say this? Can I say this?
Well, I have to make sure I'm saying the right thing.
100%. All right. Thank you again for hosting to the TBDC group. John, to have the king of CAD here to tell us about the past, the present, the future. To say a little thank you, Mosaic has prepared a little package of swag, some printed, some not. So we'll get you fitted downstairs later. You can walk around Boston with all the Mosaic swag.
All right.
And that was a great conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us.
Thanks, Mosaic.